Okay, so let's talk about the best player, the best athlete, your number one on your big board.
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about cornerbacks and like the speed that they're going to need to see, the talent, the market for a great corner. Were you surprised that he came into the combine only listed as a defensive back?
Not too much, because I think at the end of the day that I would have been really surprised if they, were able to put him in both groups. I think he's pretty adamant about playing on both sides of the ball at the NFL level. Now, what that looks like from a sports science perspective from an NFL team is going to be a different conversation. They're going to have a staff that looks at it and goes, hey, we know you could play over 100 snaps at the college level, but over a long period of time at the NFL level, we don't know if the human body could do that. And Travis has the confidence that he feels like he could be successful on both sides. I think he can. I mean, just ranking him individually, there's an argument to be made. He's the number one corner in this draft. There's no questions about that. But you can make the argument that he'd also be the number one wide receiver. And as you see, he's the number one overall player for me. I know a lot of people like Abdul Carter, number one overall. I still think Hunter, the way he impacts the game, is incredible. My best guess, Nicole, and a lot of people are gravitating towards this way, he'll be drafted as a number one corner in the NFL. There'll be a package of plays for him at wide receiver.
That's what I would do.
It's the thing that allows him to do both while still managing his body and protecting him, but he also can still impact the game tremendously on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and it feels like that's the easier way to do it. Like, you can't take someone who's like in all of the offensive meetings and receiver stuff and then throw in a complicated defensive game plan.
Hey, go cover Jamar Chase because we're in the red zone. Like, that doesn't it doesn't work that way.
Right. And so I'm with you. It was interesting. I was on PFT earlier, and Florio's take was, what if someone drafts him as just like, no, like, this is how we're doing, because this is the system we're in, right? Like, you can say in an era of player empowerment, here's what I want.
Sure.
And you could even have Deion Sanders pressuring from the outside. You'd be an idiot not to have him as a receiver, at least in packages. But a team could still say no.
Of course. At the end of the day, they're telling what guys go in and what guys come out, right? That's the reality. And I think that's why these conversations here, I always say the NFL Combine, people love the event. It's great for the media like us that, you watch the testing on TV. You get all these interviews of players. All those things are great. The most important aspect of the NFL Combine is what you don't see on television. It is the medicals, and it is when teams meet with these guys. And you'll have a good feel from the guy of what he's open to, what his desires are. And I think a team will find Travis Hunter, figure it out and find a way to kind of get together on it. The interesting argument is, if he's a wide receiver full-time, that market is more expensive drastically than the cornerback market. If he really does play both ways, we don't know what that market is. It's a unicorn. Is he going to be paid like a quarterback? Is there a world where, hey, you're a $50 million player now? So I think that's part of it as well. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to probably stand his ground and want to do both. And I just think you really highlighted this point. You can be a full-time corner and you can impact the game as a wide receiver. I don't know if you could be a full-time wide receiver and get into the rhythm of being a corner.
Right.
There's so much and credit to him for doing it at college, which is unbelievable in the Big 12.
But still, their offense was like, shooter, scramble enough, and throw to one of your receivers, right? Like, it was a different level.
And at the NFL level on defense, you're going to be in meetings all week where, hey, when they're in this look, we're playing quarters. Or, hey, on third downs, third and longs, when we bring our pressure, you're in man. Or, like, you need to check to this. Or is your team playing sides? Are you going to ask him to play on an island and travel with the top wide receiver? You can't do that if you're a part-time corner, which is probably his best ability, I think, is playing in man coverage and matching guys' movements. I'd want to draft Travis Hunter and be like, hey, can you wipe out the number one wide receiver on the other team for the entire game?
So isn't that why, when you're looking at this logically, again, out of just like the logistics of, okay, of course you can prepare better if you're full-time defense, but also isn't that why you're kind of more valuable? I mean, yes, receivers get paid, but there are a number of great receivers.
Right.
Like, I feel like being an elite corner is still, like, for him, the better path here.
I think it is. I think it's better for the teams, for sure. And I think there's not a world where, the money is that drastically different, because you also have to look at the ceiling. I think his ceiling as a corner is he could be the best corner in football.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty attainable for somebody of his athleticism. At wide receiver, I think he's a really good wide receiver. I don't think there's a world where he'd be the best wide receiver in football. Like, I don't see him as a Jamar Chase level prospect. Even last year, Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, he's also a little smaller than some of the
He's very slender. He has a similar build and movement to Garrett Wilson, who's a tremendous NFL wide receiver. But nobody looks around and says he's the best wide receiver, right? So that's another conversation. And the corner market's going to get better, right? Sauce Gardner is going to get paid, and the market will move up, and other guys will continue to get paid. So by the time, if he gets drafted, he plays corner, and he ultimately, in 3 years, because that's when you're eligible for an NFL extension, is up, I mean, he could really break the bank and move that market to a place
Especially
we
if he
haven't
is
seen.
playing a little bit of receiver, right? And
Playing a
it's
little
like
bit of a
it's
receiver.
unique
So it's going to be a sweetener. Say the top corner, when he's due to get paid, is paid $30 million a year. It's like, okay, you're the best corner.
plus.
And you also help at wide receiver, and you travel with other teams' number one wide receivers. Maybe you're now a $38 million a year corner.
Yeah.
You move the market $8 million. That doesn't happen at positions in the NFL, but it can happen for someone like him.
For sure.